Lisa Johnson walked through the busy airport with her small black suitcase rolling behind her. She wore a simple blue dress and comfortable shoes. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail. To anyone watching, she looked like any other business traveler heading to catch a flight. But Lisa was not just any traveler. She was the owner and boss of Johnson Aviation Holdings, one of the biggest private airplane companies in the country. Today, she was taking a trip on one of her own planes. However, none of the workers knew who she was. She had planned it this way. Lisa wanted to see how her employees treated regular customers. She had heard some complaints lately about poor service. The best way to find out the truth was to travel like a normal passenger and watch everything. With her own eyes, she checked her phone and saw that her flight was on time. Gate 15. She walked through the airport, passing coffee shops and gift stores. Other travelers hurried by with their bags and worried looks on their faces. Some were talking loudly on their phones. Others sat quietly waiting for their flights. When Lisa reached Gate 15, she saw a beautiful white airplane parked outside the window. It was one of her newest planes. She felt proud seeing it there, clean and ready for flight. The plane could hold 40 passengers and had the best safety equipment money could buy. A voice came over the speaker system. "Good morning, passengers. Flight 892 to Chicago will begin boarding in 10 minutes. Please have your tickets ready." Lisa found a seat in the waiting area and watched the other passengers. There was an older man in an expensive suit reading a newspaper. A young woman held a crying baby and tried to calm him down. Two teenagers played games on their phones. Everyone seemed normal and peaceful. When boarding began, Lisa joined the line with her first-class ticket. She had bought the most expensive seat to see if the service was worth the high price her company charged. As she walked toward the plane, she felt excited but also nervous. What would she discover about her own business today? The airplane door was open, and she could smell the clean leather seats inside. A flight attendant stood at the entrance with a big smile. His name tag said, Kevin Miller. He was a tall man, with brown hair and looked to be about 30 years old. "Good morning and welcome aboard," Kevin said to the passengers in front of Lisa. He checked their tickets quickly and pointed them toward their seats. His voice sounded friendly and professional. But when Lisa stepped forward and handed him her ticket, something changed. Kevin looked at her ticket, then looked at her face, then back at the ticket again. His smile disappeared. "Excuse me, miss," Kevin said in a different tone of voice. "Are you sure this is your ticket?" Lisa was surprised by the question. "Yes, it is my ticket, seat 2A in first class." Kevin stared at her for a long moment. "This is a first-class ticket. Are you sure you didn't make a mistake?" Other passengers were starting to line up behind Lisa. She could feel them watching and waiting. Her face felt warm with embarrassment, but she kept her voice calm. "There is no mistake. I bought this ticket yesterday. Here is my ID if you need to check it." Lisa reached into her purse and pulled out her driver's license. Kevin took it and studied it carefully, as if he was looking for something wrong with it. He compared the name on the license to the name on the ticket several times. "Lisa Johnson," he read out loud. "And you're flying to Chicago for business?" "That's right," Lisa said. She wondered why he was asking so many questions. The other passengers had walked right onto the plane without any problems. Kevin handed back her license, but continued to block her way into the plane. "What kind of business do you do, miss?" Lisa felt her patience starting to run out. This was not normal behavior for a flight attendant. "I work in aviation," she said simply. "Aviation?" Kevin laughed in a way that sounded mean. "What do you do in aviation?" "Clean the planes." The passengers behind Lisa began to whisper to each other. Someone pulled out their phone and started recording. Lisa noticed this, but tried to stay calm. She was here to learn about customer service, and she was certainly learning something. "Sir, I have a valid ticket and ID. I would like to take my seat now," Lisa said firmly. Kevin crossed his arms over his chest. "Look, lady, I don't know how. You got this ticket, but first class costs a lot of money. Maybe you should check your ticket again and make sure you're not supposed to be in the back of the plane." Lisa could not believe what she was hearing. She was being questioned and embarrassed simply because this man did not think she belonged in first class. She thought about all the money she had spent training employees to treat customers with respect. Apparently, some of them had not been listening. "I will say this one more time," Lisa said, her voice getting stronger. "I have a first-class ticket. I paid for first class. I am getting on this plane and sitting in seat 2A. Kevin's face turned red. "Don't use that tone with me. I'm trying to help you avoid embarrassment when they ask you to move to the right seat." By now, several passengers had their phones out and were recording everything. A few people were shaking their heads in disgust. One man said loudly, "This is ridiculous. Let the woman on the plane." But Kevin was not finished. He stepped closer to Lisa and pointed his finger at her face. "I think there might be a problem with how you got this ticket. Maybe I should call security and let them figure this out." Lisa looked into Kevin's angry eyes and realized this situation was about to get much worse. She was the owner of this airline, but right now she was just another passenger being treated badly by her own employee. She took a deep breath and prepared for whatever would happen next. Lisa looked at Kevin and decided she would not let him scare her. She had built a successful business by standing up for herself, and she would not stop now. Even though she felt angry inside, she kept her voice calm and steady. "I do not need security," Lisa said clearly. "I need you to do your job and let me take my seat." Kevin's face got even redder. He looked around and saw that many passengers were watching them. Some were still recording with their phones. This made him more upset instead of making him think about his behavior. "You know what?" Kevin said loudly. "I think you people always try to cause trouble. You probably got this ticket from someone else, or maybe you stole it." The words hit Lisa like a slap in the face. She could not believe a flight attendant working for her own company had just said something so awful. The other passengers gasped and started talking to each other. "Did he just say what I think he said?" asked a woman in line. "This is terrible," said another passenger. "Someone needs to report this guy." Lisa felt her heart beating fast, but she kept standing straight and tall. "What do you mean by you people?" she asked Kevin. Kevin realized he had said something very bad, but instead of apologizing, he got more defensive. "I mean people who try to sneak into first class when they can't afford it. Look at you. You're dressed like you shop at cheap stores." First-class passengers wear expensive clothes and jewelry. An older man in the line behind Lisa stepped forward. "Hey, buddy, that's enough. You're way out of line. Let the lady get on the plane." "Mind your own business," Kevin snapped at the man. "I'm doing my job and keeping this flight safe." Lisa decided to try one more time to handle this peacefully. "Sir, I understand you think you're doing your job, but you are wrong about me and my ticket. I would like to speak to your supervisor." "My supervisor is busy," Kevin lied. "And I'm in charge who gets on this plane. If you don't like it, you can take the next flight." That was the last straw for Lisa. She started to walk past Kevin to get to her seat. "I am getting on this plane now," she said firmly. Kevin quickly moved to block her path. "Oh no, you're not," he said and put his hands on her shoulders to push her backward. The moment Kevin touched Lisa, everything changed. The passengers around them started yelling at him. Several people were now recording everything on their phones. Lisa stumbled back from the push, but caught herself. "Did you just put your hands on me?" Lisa asked, her voice shaking with anger. You were trying to force your way onto my plane, Kevin said, but he looked worried now. He knew he had made a big mistake by touching her. Your plane? Lisa almost laughed. This is not your plane. A young woman passenger stepped forward with her phone recording. I got all of that on video. He pushed her for no reason. This is assault. Everyone calm down, Kevin said, but his voice was not confident anymore. There's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is how you still have a job, said the older man who had spoken up earlier. I've been flying for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like this. Lisa straightened her dress and picked up her purse. She looked Kevin directly in the eyes. What is your full name and employee number? Why do you want to know that? Kevin asked. Because I plan to file a complaint about your behavior and the fact that you just assaulted me. Kevin laughed, but it sounded nervous. Good luck with that. Do you know how many complaints we get? Nobody cares about one upset passenger. Just then, another flight attendant appeared from inside the plane. It was a woman with short blonde hair and a name tag that said Carol White. She looked confused about all the noise and commotion at the airplane door. Kevin, what's going on out here? Carol asked. Why haven't we started boarding first class yet? This woman is causing problems, Kevin said quickly. She has a ticket she probably didn't pay for, and she's being difficult. Carol looked at Lisa, then at all the passengers holding phones and recording. She could see this was a serious situation. Ma'am, may I see your ticket and ID, please? Lisa handed over her documents. Carol looked at them carefully, then looked at Lisa. Unlike Kevin, Carol did not seem to have any problem believing the ticket belonged to Lisa. Everything looks perfect here, Carol said. Mrs. Johnson, I apologize for any delay. Please come aboard, and I'll show you to your seat. She's not getting on this plane, Kevin said angrily. I already told her she needs to take another flight. Carol stared at Kevin like he had lost his mind. Kevin, what are you talking about? Her ticket is valid. We need to start boarding now. I don't care what you say, Kevin shouted. I'm not letting her on this plane. People like her always cause trouble once they get in the air. The passengers were getting more upset by the minute. Someone called out, We're recording everything. This guy is crazy. Another person said, I'm calling the airline customer service right now to report this. Lisa watched all of this happening and realized that Kevin was digging himself into a very deep hole. As the owner of the airline, she knew that his behavior was not just wrong. It was also going to cost the company a lot of money and damage their reputation. Carol looked embarrassed and angry. Kevin, you need to stop talking right now. Mrs. Johnson, please accept my apology. This is not how we treat our passengers. But Kevin was too upset to listen to anyone. I don't care what any of you think. I know trouble when I see it, and she's trouble. Lisa smiled quietly to herself. Kevin had no idea just how much trouble he was in. Carol White looked very embarrassed as she tried to fix the mess Kevin had created. She could see that many passengers were recording everything with their phones. This was exactly the kind of situation that could destroy an airline's reputation in just one day. Mrs. Johnson, please let me personally escort you to your seat, Carl said politely. We are very sorry for this delay. Lisa nodded and followed Carol onto the plane. As they walked down the narrow aisle, she could hear the other passengers talking loudly about what they had just witnessed. Some were already calling friends and family to tell them about the crazy flight attendant who had pushed a passenger. I cannot believe that just happened, said one woman to her husband. Did you get it all on video? Every single second, her husband replied. This is going to be all over the internet tonight. Lisa sat down in seat 2A and put on her seatbelt. The leather seat was comfortable and expensive, just like she had ordered when she bought these planes. She looked around the first-class cabin and noticed that everything was clean and well organized. If only her employees were as good as her equipment. Carol leaned down and spoke quietly to Lisa. Mrs. Johnson, I want you to know that Kevin's behavior does not represent our airline. We pride ourselves on treating all passengers with respect and dignity. I appreciate that, Lisa said calmly. But what are you going to do about Kevin? He assaulted me in front of dozens of witnesses. Carol looked worried. I will be writing a full report about this incident as soon as we land. Kevin will face serious consequences for his actions. Lisa wanted to tell Carol that she owned the airline and Kevin would be fired before the day was over. But she decided to keep playing her role as a regular passenger. She wanted to see how the situation would be handled without her influence. I hope so, Lisa said. Because if this is how your airline treats paying customers, I will never fly with you again. And I will make sure everyone I know hears about this. Meanwhile, Kevin was still at the airplane door, arguing with passengers who were trying to board. He seemed to think that if he acted tough enough, people would forget what had happened. But he was very wrong. Come on, people, let's get moving, Kevin said loudly. We have a schedule to keep. The older man who had defended Lisa earlier walked up to Kevin. You should be ashamed of yourself, young man. That was disgraceful behavior. I don't need a lecture from you, Grandpa, Kevin shot back. I was doing my job. Your job is to help passengers, not attack them, the man replied. I've been flying since before you were born, and I've never seen anything like that. More passengers were getting on the plane now, and many of them had heard about the incident from people who had witnessed it. Word was spreading quickly through the cabin. Is it true that flight attendant pushed a lady? Asked the teenager, too. His mother. That's what everyone is saying, his mother whispered back. I heard she's going to sue the airline. Lisa heard these conversations and realized that the story was already growing bigger than what had actually happened. By the time they landed in Chicago, it would probably be all over social media. She pulled out her phone and saw that she had several missed calls from her assistant. She called her assistant back, speaking quietly so other passengers could not hear her clearly. Hello, Amy. Yes, I'm on the flight now. Listen, I need you to do something very important for me. I want you to set up a meeting with our legal team and HR department for as soon as I land in Chicago. Also, I need you to contact our head of flight operations and tell him to meet me at the airport. Amy sounded confused. Is everything okay, Lisa? You sound upset? Lisa looked around to make sure no one was listening. I just had a very educational experience with one of our employees. I'll explain everything when I see you. Just make sure everyone is ready for an emergency meeting. Should I ask what this is about? Amy asked. Tell them it's about employee conduct and customer service. And Amy, I want you to start looking into our training programs. I think we have some serious problems that need to be fixed immediately. After Lisa hung up, she noticed that Carol was watching her with curiosity. The way Lisa had spoken on the phone, giving orders and talking about legal teams did not sound like a typical passenger. Carol wondered who this woman really was. The plane was almost full now, and Kevin finally came inside. He looked angry and frustrated as he walked through the cabin, checking that passengers had their seat belts on. When he got to Lisa's row, he stopped. I hope you learned your lesson, Kevin said quietly to Lisa, trying to make sure other passengers could not hear him. Lisa looked up at him with calm eyes. Oh, I learned a lot today. More than you can imagine. Something about the way she said. It made Kevin feel uncomfortable. There was a confidence in her voice that he had not noticed before. For a moment, he wondered if he had made a mistake, but then he shook his head and continued walking through the cabin. He was convinced that he had done the right thing. After all, how important could one passenger be? As the plane prepared for takeoff, Lisa looked out the window at the airport below. In a few hours, she would be in Chicago, and Kevin's life would change forever. She almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The airplane landed smoothly at Chicago Airport after a 3-hour flight. During the trip, Lisa had been quiet and polite to all the flight attendants except Kevin. She noticed that the other workers were professional and kind. It was clear that Kevin was the problem, not the whole crew. As passengers started to get off the plane, Lisa stayed in her seat and continued making phone calls. She spoke quietly but firmly to people on the other end of the line. Kevin walked by several times and tried to listen to her conversations, but he could not hear much. "Yes, I want the conference room ready in 30 minutes, Lisa said into her phone. "Make sure legal is there, and HR, and Danny from operations. This cannot wait." Carol noticed that Lisa was in no hurry to leave the plane. Most passengers rushed to get their bags and run to their next flight or to meet family members. But Lisa seemed to be organizing some kind of important meeting. "Mrs. Johnson, is someone picking you up?" Carol asked politely. "Yes, my team is meeting me here," Lisa replied. "Thank you for your professional service during the flight. You handled a difficult situation very well." Carol smiled, but she was still curious about who this passenger really was. The way Lisa talked about her team and legal made Carol think she might be someone important. But Carol could not imagine how important. Kevin was cleaning up the first-class cabin when he heard Lisa mention legal again. He started to feel worried for the first time since the incident began. What if this woman really was planning to sue the airline? What if she had connections or money to cause real trouble? But then Kevin shook his head and told himself he was being silly. She was just one upset passenger. The airline got complaints every day. Nothing would happen to him. Lisa finally stood up and gathered her things. As she walked toward the airplane door, she smiled at Carol. "I hope we meet again soon," she said in a way that sounded like she knew something Carol did not know. When Lisa stepped off the plane, she immediately saw her assistant Amy waiting for her. Behind Amy stood 3 other people in business suits. Kevin watched from the airplane door and wondered why this passenger had so many people waiting for her. "Lisa, thank God you're okay," Amy said, giving her boss a hug. "When you called and said you needed an emergency meeting, I was so worried." "I'm fine, Amy, but we have a very serious problem with employee training," Lisa said. "Are Danny and the legal team ready?" "Everyone is waiting in conference room A," Amy replied. "I also called the airport manager like you asked. He's standing by in case you need him." Kevin watched this conversation with growing confusion. Why would the airport manager care about one passenger complaint? And why did this woman have her own legal team? Lisa and her group walked toward the terminal building. As they passed the gate area, Kevin saw something that made his stomach drop. There was a sign on the wall that said, "Welcome to Chicago, hub of Johnson Aviation Holdings." Kevin stared at the sign and then looked at the woman walking away. Her name was Lisa Johnson. Johnson Aviation Holdings. Could it be possible? He ran to catch up with Carol, who was finishing her paperwork. "Carol, what was that passenger's name again?" "Lisa Johnson. Why?" Carol asked. Kevin pointed at the sign on the wall. "Look at that sign. Johnson Aviation Holdings. Do you think she could be related to the company?" Carol looked at the sign and then thought about how Lisa had acted during the flight. The phone calls about legal teams and meetings. The way she talked like someone used to being in charge. The confidence in her voice when she said, "I hope we meet again soon." "Oh no," Carol whispered. "Kevin, what if she owns the airline?" Kevin felt like he was going to be sick. That's impossible. She can't be the owner. Look at how she was dressed. She looked so ordinary. But even as he said it, Kevin remembered stories about rich business owners who dressed simply and traveled, without security or fancy clothes. What if Lisa Johnson was one of those people? In conference room A, Lisa sat at the head of a long table surrounded by her top executives. Danny Martinez, her vice president of operations, was shaking his head in disbelief as Lisa told the story of what had happened. "He actually pushed you?" Danny asked. "In front of other passengers?" "Multiple people recorded it on their phones," Lisa confirmed. "By now, it's probably already on social media. This could be a public relations nightmare for us." The head of legal, Maria Santos, was taking notes on her laptop. "We need to act quickly. If this story goes viral, it could cost us millions in lost business." "What do you want to do about the employee?" asked Janet Taylor from Human Resources. Lisa thought. For a moment. She was angry about how Kevin had treated her, but she also knew that firing people was serious business. She wanted to be fair, even to someone who had been unfair to her. "I want to meet with him first," Lisa decided. "I want to hear what he has to say about his behavior. Then we'll decide on the consequences." Amy knocked on the conference room door and came in. "Lisa, the airport manager is here. He says it's urgent." The airport manager, Bob Davis, came into the room looking very worried. "Ms. Johnson, I just heard about an incident on one of your flights. I'm so sorry. This reflects badly on our airport as well as your airline." "Thank you, Bob. We're handling it," Lisa said calmly. "There's something else," Bob continued. "The flight attendant who caused the problem is asking to speak with someone in charge. He seems to have figured out who you are. He looks terrified." Lisa smiled slightly. "Good. Send him in. It's time for Kevin to learn exactly who he was dealing with." Kevin Miller stood outside conference room A with his hands shaking. His face was pale and sweat dripped down his forehead. He had spent the last 20 minutes learning the truth about Lisa Johnson, and now he felt sick to his stomach. Corral. White stood next to him, also looking worried. As Kevin's supervisor, she knew that she would face consequences too for not stopping the incident sooner. But her situation was nothing compared to Kevin's. "Maybe she'll be understanding," Carol whispered, trying to make Kevin feel better. "Maybe she'll give you another chance." Kevin shook his head. "I pushed her, Carol. I put my hands on the owner of the company and pushed her. There's no coming back from that." The conference room door opened and Amy stepped out. "Ms. Johnson, we'll see you now," she said in a professional but cold voice. Kevin and Carol walked into the room and immediately felt the tension. Lisa sat at the head of the table, surrounded by lawyers, executives, and HR representatives. Everyone was looking at Kevin with serious expressions. "Please sit down," Lisa said calmly, pointing to 2 chairs across from her. Kevin sat down and could not look Lisa in the eyes. He stared at the table and waited for his career to end. "Kevin Miller," Lisa began, reading from a file in front of her. "You have worked for Johnson Aviation Holdings for 2 years. Your performance reviews have been average. You have received 1 written warning for being rude to passengers 6 months ago." Kevin looked up in surprise. He had forgotten about that previous complaint. Now it looked even worse for him. "Today you questioned my right to board one of my own airplanes. You made discriminatory comments about my appearance and my race. You accused me of stealing or fraudulently obtaining my ticket. And finally, you physically assaulted me in front of multiple witnesses." The room was completely quiet. Kevin could hear his own heart beating. "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Lisa asked. Kevin's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry. Ms. Johnson, I made a terrible mistake. I don't know what came over me." "What came over you," Lisa said firmly, "was prejudice. You looked at me and decided I didn't belong in first class because of the color of my skin and the clothes I was wearing." That kind of thinking has no place in my company. Danny Martinez, a VP of Operations, spoke up. Kevin, do you realize that videos of your behavior are already spreading on social media? Our customer service phones have been ringing non-stop with people asking about this incident. Kevin felt even worse. I never meant for it to go this far, but it did go this far, said Maria Santos from the legal department. You assaulted our CEO. That's a crime. Ms. Johnson could have you arrested right now if she wanted to. Kevin looked at Lisa with panic in his eyes. Please don't have me arrested. I have a family. I need this job. Lisa studied Kevin's face for a long moment. She could see that he was truly sorry and scared. But she also knew that his actions had hurt her company and could not be ignored. Kevin, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. If I had been a white woman in expensive clothes, would you have treated me the same way? Kevin was quiet for a long time. Finally, he shook his head. No, ma'am. I probably wouldn't have questioned your ticket at all. At least you're being honest now, Lisa said. That's more than you were this morning. Janet Taylor from HR opened her laptop. Kevin Miller, you are terminated from Johnson Aviation Holdings. Effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. You will receive your final paycheck by mail. Kevin had expected this, but hearing it out loud still felt like a punch to the stomach. I understand, he said quietly. Lisa turned to Carol. Carol White, you are suspended without pay for 1 week for failing to immediately stop this incident. You will also attend sensitivity training before returning to work. Carol nodded, grateful that she was not being fired. Thank you for the second chance, Miss Johnson. Don't thank me yet, Lisa said. If anything like this ever happens again on your watch, you will be terminated as well. After Kevin and Carol left the room, Lisa turned to her team. I want every employee in this company to go through new training on diversity and customer service. I want it to be mandatory, and I want it to happen within the next month. We'll get started on that right away, Janet promised. Also, Lisa continued, I want to create a new position. We need a customer rights advocate who reports directly to me. Someone passengers can contact if they feel they've been treated unfairly. Danny made notes on his phone. That's a great idea. It will show customers that we take their concerns seriously. Maria looked up from her laptop. Lisa, I should mention that we could face a lawsuit from passengers who witnessed the incident. They might claim emotional distress, and we'll handle it properly, Lisa said. We'll apologize, we'll show them what we're doing to fix the problem, and we'll make sure it never happens again. 6 months later, Johnson Aviation Holdings had become known as the most customer-friendly airline in the country. The incident with Kevin had turned into a positive change for the entire company. Lisa's new training programs were copied by other airlines, and customer complaints dropped by 80%. Kevin Miller found a job at a warehouse loading trucks. It was hard work and paid less than being a flight attendant, but it gave him time to think about his mistakes. He attended counseling sessions to understand his prejudices and worked to become a better person. The incident had taught everyone involved an important lesson. You never know who you're dealing with, and more importantly, it doesn't matter. Every person deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of what they look like or where they come from. Lisa Johnson had turned one terrible experience into a force for positive change, proving that sometimes the worst situations can lead to the best outcomes.